Hello and welcome to Watch Releases Recap for the week of January 12th until January the 19th. Let's begin with Seiko and their new cocktail time reference SRPK75 and SRE014. For years now, Seiko Presage cocktail time has been enthusiast choice for a mid-range classic dress watch. Now there is a new addition to this range of watches nicknamed Purple Sunset. Looking at this dial, you can right away see why it's nicknamed as such. The watch still comes with the classic cocktail time proportions, 40.5mm case diameter, only 47.5mm like-to-like distance. These watches are also not overly thick, under 12mm in total case thickness. They are powered by the Seiko's in-house movement caliber 6R35. It's an automatic movement with hacking and hand winding, 41 hours of power reserve, and it's a low beating movement, beating at 21,800 vibrations per hour. You probably noticed that at the beginning of this segment, I talked about two different references of cocktail time. The second reference is targeting towards females because it has a very small case diameter, only 30mm in case diameter. The like-to-like distance is 39mm, and the watch is even slimmer at under 11mm in case thickness. Now, arguably 30mm is even too small for a lot of female watches. Like, for example, my wife, she prefers a watch to be a little larger, maybe 34 to 36mm, and she doesn't even have that big of a wrist. I think the 30mm case diameter is slightly too old-fashioned, but maybe I'm wrong on this one. Coming back to the men's version, that Purple Sunset, so that is actually a limited version, but before you freak out, don't worry, they're making 9,000 of these pieces, so it's not actually that limited. If you really want to buy one, you can easily do so. The price of this watch is 490 euros, and you should be able to pick it up from any Seiko AD. If you're wondering about the female version, that one is also limited to 5,000 pieces, and the price of it is 520 euros. Omega Speedmaster Dark Side of the Moon Apollo 8 edition. If you're into Omega Speedmaster watches, you're probably aware that there is already an existing line of watches called Dark Side of the Moon Apollo 8 edition, and also if you don't pay too much attention to the details, it looks exactly the same as this watch. But this is actually quite a big upgrade from the current version of the Dark Side of the Moon. It's sort of like an iPhone where every year they upgrade it, they give it new processor, new screen, new cameras, but visually it looks very similar. I think it's a similar story with this watch because the biggest upgrade, the biggest difference between this new version and the current version is the movement. So now these watches have MATAS certified movements, caliber 3869. It's pretty much the same as the movement in the Moon watch, the caliber 3861, just with slight upgrades. And I think because it's a skeletonized dial, they did a few changes. It still beats at 21,600 vibrations per hour, still has 50 hours of power reserve, that's silicone hairspring, the coaxial escapement, and they are excellent. Very accurate, very robust. The new Speedmaster has been out for a few years, and these movements have proven to be very, very reliable. Visually, there are also a few different changes between the new version and the original version. You see that the tachymeter yellow text is gone on the new version. Also, the strap now is rubber as opposed to leather. I think that original one had. Also, the subdial at the 9 o'clock position, specifically the seconds hand, is now in the shape of a little Saturn V rocket, which I think looks really cool and definitely fits the whole theme of this watch. Also, the body of the moon surface is a little bit more pronounced, and overall I think they just tightened up a few different things about the design of this watch. The other thing to note is that this watch is actually a little bit thinner. It's almost 1mm thinner in total case thickness as opposed to the previous version. So the dimensions of this watch are 44.2mm in diameter, 50mm like-to-like distance, and just under 13mm in case thickness, as opposed to almost 14mm in case thickness on the other version. The case is still made out of ceramic, it still has the sapphire crystal. Unfortunately, it still has that low water resistance, only 50 meters, and it is a little bit expensive. $14,300 US is the retail price of this watch. I think this watch is worth it, but you tell me, is this watch worth over $14,000? The new Hamilton Khaki Aviation Pilot collection. Hamilton Khaki is one of these legendary lines within watch collecting community. A lot of people's first watches were in fact Hamilton Khaki watches. Now within this line there is a few different types of watches. You have diver watches, you also have pilot's watches. In this case there is an upgrade to their Aviation line. Of course, Hamilton is very famous for their Aviation type pieces. These new Aviation pilot watches are essentially a slight modification to their existing line, but I think that the modifications that they have done are very welcomed. Essentially, there are two new sizes. There's the 42mm case diameter and a 36mm case diameter. The difference between the two, other than the actual case size, is day-date complication. The larger watch gets the day-date complication, the smaller version does not. The smaller version, however, does come in the gold PVD coating. As we've seen with a few other watchmakers last year, this trend continues. Watchmakers making their watches look like gold cases, but of course using PVD because it is more cost effective. There is a lot to like about these watches. First of all, even though the case diameter is kind of large, still 42mm, it's not as large as the previous version of this watch, 46mm, so it is shrunken down. The thickness is excellent, 12mm in total thickness. They have 100 meters of water resistance. Both of them are powered by essentially the same movement, the Hamilton Caliber H10, which is another name for Powermatic 80. It's a popular ETA movement. It beats at 21,800 vibrations per hour. It has 80 hours of power reserve and 25 joules. These movements over the years have proven to be very robust and very reliable. The prices for these watches range between 920 Swiss francs on the leather strap and up to 1,000 Swiss francs for the one on the stainless steel bracelet. Out of the bunch, I really like this blue dial version, although the black classic dial also looks very sharp. The one that I don't really love that much is the white dial version, but that's because I personally am not a big fan of white dials. Zenith Pilot Automatic Boutique Edition chronograph, as well as a standard three-hander. Last year, Zenith introduced their new Pilot collection of watches, and they had two different versions. There is the chronograph, to be specific, a Flyback chronograph, as well as a standard three-hander with a date. This year, they're kind of building on that success and introducing two new dial versions, but these are only in boutiques. I really like the horizontal striping on the dial. I think it looks very sharp. I also really like the shade of blue that they chose here. It's very pleasant and it kind of stands out among the sea of other blue dials. The date window is very pronounced. At the 6 o'clock position, you also have that word pilot written right under or over the date, depending on which version you go for. The standard Pilot Automatic comes in a 40mm case diameter. It's only 13mm thick, and it's powered by the caliber El Primero 3620 SC automatic movement, 60 hours of power reserve. It's a very high beat movement, beating at 36,000 vibrations per hour, and it has 35 joules. The Flyback chronograph version is a little bit larger because you need more space to fit all those little intricate parts. So this one is 42.5mm in case diameter. It's 14.3mm in thickness, and this one is powered by the caliber El Primero 3652, which is a Flyback chronograph mechanism with automatic winding, 60 hours of power reserve, and it is also a high beat movement at 36,000 vibrations per hour, and this one also has 35 joules. Now, as far as the prices go, the standard three-hander is $7,500 and the Flyback chronograph version is 11.5 grand. These are not limited editions, but they are boutique exclusives. And that's it for this video. Those were the watch releases that I wanted to highlight this week. Thanks for watching it all the way until the end. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the YouTube channel for more videos like this in the future, and leave a comment in the comment section below. Let me know what releases stood out to you personally. I always enjoy reading your comments. Thanks for watching this video, and we'll see you next time. Bye.